Okay, a few more points I wanted to make before I wrap this up. First of all, does this system have incentives for the efficient use of society's resources? I say yes. Let's see how that is. First of all, if you're a workplace, you have an incentive to use inputs that come with a low labor unpleasantness weighting factor and to use as few of those inputs as possible so that your unpleasant labor needed for your inputs is as low as possible. Okay, because that's going to factor into your unpleasant labor needed per unit of output and your total social unpleasantness per unit of output, which in turn is going to factor into, if you work at that workplace, what the total unpleasantness cost to society of the things you make is going to be. You want to decrease this to the lowest amount possible. And by the way, if you were grading someone, you could see, okay, what do other t-shirts cost from other producers as far as, what do comparable goods cost? How many socially unpleasant hours does it take to produce a t-shirt? You could decide that. But you want to make this number as small as possible if you're a citizen who works at one of these workplaces, which means you want to find suppliers that are enjoying their work, and you want to use as few of their inputs as possible. Okay, that's an efficiency incentive. You also want to focus on producing stuff that has a high product utilization rate, stuff that is, not doesn't have huge excess inventory, but stuff that's has very little inventory or has a huge long wait list, which might even put the product utilization rate over 1 if there are twice as many people who want to use something as is available. You might have a product utilization rate of 2. This number can easily go above 1, we can imagine. So you want to focus on producing stuff that has the highest product utilization rate. And if you're a citizen, you want to join a workplace that's producing something with a high utilization rate. All right, that's an incentive. And the reason for that is that influences the social unpleasantness. All right. Lower utilization rate means higher unpleasantness, more wastefulness. Also influences this figure of socially necessary units produced. All right, the higher utilization rate, the more of these units are socially necessary. All right, so that's an efficiency incentive. You have an incentive to not consume inordinate amounts of stuff, for your daily subsistence, for your household use, quote unquote, because that factors into your social cost. All right, so all these incentives are there. And what else? Well, you obviously have an incentive to be a good citizen in certain qualitative ways, not paint people's doors with swastikas. And one more thing I wanted to point out is you could easily extend this analysis to workplaces. So you could have grades of workplace performance using basically the same sort of cost-benefit analysis. Or you could even just average the grades of each worker who works at that workplace to see where the workplace stands on a ration list. There are a number of ways you could do that using the same sort of setup. And by the way, I should point out this cost, this social cost of producing something, is not a price that you would pay for obtaining that item. All right, maybe I need to reiterate that because it goes against our intuition. Okay. If we say that this is the total social unpleasantness needed to produce one of these really cool t-shirts from this producer, that's not a price that people have to pay to obtain it. That determines the cost to the society. That does not automatically determine the benefits. You need to realize producers want to make this number as low as possible because this shows their costs to society. All right. This is not how much the item is worth. Okay. This is not the amount of socially necessary labor unpleasantness. This is just the amount of unpleasantness of labor needed by this workplace to produce this thing. Other workplaces might be producing a very similar good, such as really cool t-shirts, and they might be doing it with much less social unpleasantness. Right? In which case, if you're a citizen or a producer, you'd want to get your inputs from them, right, so that your resulting products have a lower social unpleasantness per unit of output. The point is, this does not determine prices, okay? There's no money involved here. The only thing that this cost-benefit analysis decides is where your relative rank is in the waiting list, in the ration line. When you show up in the ration line, you don't pay with money. You're just given the product to use, or the service, or whatever. You don't pay money. This is quite a bit different than, for example, Michael Albert's participatory economics, which does have some similar elements in that you have households that are, estimating how much stuff they'll use each year, and data coming from different parts of society. It's not just a central committee deciding everything. You've got input from many different parts of society. All of that's pretty similar, but the big difference is participatory economics, as far as I understand it, still involves prices and exchange and money, and this is not the way this is working here. Okay, there's no exchange involved, at least not directly. I mean, there's implicitly an exchange of, you should produce something for society to justify your cost to society, but it's in a very indirect way, and it's judged qualitatively here by your other citizens. So there are some big differences there. Also, participatory economics puts more stress on having, from what I understand, something like central government inspectors gathering a lot of this data, whereas I don't necessarily assume that. A lot of this inputted data is coming from just, individuals in society. Data agency has responsibility for only some of this, and I like the idea of having multiple data agencies, perhaps even competing with each other, and people can vote on which one's doing the best job and use that one, and different, you have different options so that you don't have just one monopoly on all some of this important data, such as the product utilization rate, which could influence in a lot of these calculations. So I do think this system has some novel elements, and is worth doing this video series about, and I hope that other communists and labor theorists find this video in this spreadsheet useful. I will post this up to my website, and feel free to use it and modify it in any way you want. Like I said, you could modify this to calculate workplace cost-benefit analyses and wait list ranks, instead of just individual citizen ranks. You can make all sorts of changes to this. Obviously, this is a simplified version. It doesn't account for every, input. These are just examples. And in reality, you need a page like this for every citizen and producer in the country. Definitely not something that one person could keep track of. It would take, some sort of full-time data agency or several. But it's not going to be so complicated that, it'd be impossible. Certainly not more complicated than our modern capitalist society and economy is already. So I hope people find this useful. Feel free to leave feedback on my blog, and I'll see you next time.